Have you ever noticed how some men get ignored before they even speak, while others are respected the moment they walk in? Countless men who had everything to offer have been erased, not because they lacked worth, but because of how they appeared. People judge in seconds, and once that judgment is made, it almost never goes away. Machiavelli called this one of the harshest laws of human nature, a rule that rewards fools who look strong and punishes great men who look weak. You've seen it play out your whole life, but you may not have realized what was happening. If you learn to master it, this same rule that destroys most men can become the tool that lifts you above them. It's the line between being ignored and being respected. And once you understand it, you will never see the world the same way again. A man who looks poor is already judged guilty before he opens his mouth. In a world ruled by appearances, weakness is a sentence passed instantly and without appeal. When the eye meets a man's figure, when it takes in his clothes, his posture, his bearing, the judgment is made before a single word can redeem him. The beggar is despised not for his hunger, but for what his hunger reveals: impotence, failure, disposability. A man who looks poor is a man marked for trampling. He can possess wisdom, strength, even virtue, but the covering that clothes him will condemn him. In the court of men, perception is law, and the law is merciless. Those who project lack invite scorn. Those who project strength command obedience. To appear poor is to be invisible at best, ridiculed at worst, destroyed when convenient. Consider how merchants treat customers. A man in rags enters a shop, and eyes turn away. Service becomes sluggish, the offers diminish, the tone sharpens. Another man enters, clean, composed, adorned with signs of wealth, and suddenly every hand is eager to serve, every word is honeyed. The goods have not changed. The coins in their purses may weigh the same, but the appearance decides the respect they command. In the palace of power, this law is even sharper. A man who dresses below his station, who fails to signal wealth, who neglects the armor of appearances, will find doors closed, allies scarce, and enemies bold. His poverty brands him as prey. Power respects the image, not the truth. Truth is too slow to persuade. Image strikes instantly, before the mind can resist. And so a man who looks poor dies politically before he even begins to live. History is littered with men who could not master this law. Think of the forgotten advisor whose counsel was sound, yet whose shabby garments caused princes to dismiss him. Think of the scholar whose brilliance was buried beneath ridicule because he lacked the polish of wealth. They were not defeated by their ideas, but by their failure to dress them in power. Meanwhile, lesser men, adorned in splendor, were hailed as geniuses, applauded as leaders, entrusted with authority. The crowd, like cattle, follows the banner, not the truth. Appear poor, and your wisdom will rot unheard. Appear rich, and your lies will be taken as scripture. This is the brutal geometry of perception. It is better to fake greatness than to show naked poverty. To walk the world without the mask of wealth is to invite humiliation. Imagine the man in the market whose shoes are cracked, whose jacket is thin, whose posture bends with shame. He passes and the crowd sees not a man, but a warning. This is what failure looks like, whispers every eye. He becomes an example to frighten others. But imagine another man, no richer in coin, yet shrouded in clean attire, upright, his gaze steady. The world bends differently around him. Traders lower their prices, women soften their voices, guards part ways. Both men may share the same poverty, but one has disguised it, and in disguise he has power. Men do not obey the facts, they obey the symbols. Appearances enslave them more than reality ever could. You must understand that poverty is not simply the absence of wealth, it is the presence of weakness. And weakness is blood in the water. To display it openly is to beg the wolves to feast. The man who looks poor invites betrayal, insult, dismissal, robbery. His voice carries no weight, his warnings are ignored, his ambitions are mocked. But the man who cloaks his poverty, who wears the armor of wealth, even when hollow, terrifies predators into hesitation. They see the sign of strength and mistake it for reality. They restrain their bite. Power is perception first, substance second. It is enough to look formidable until you can become formidable. Those who fail to master this die before their chance arrives. Even in matters of survival, appearance decides fate. A general whose troops march ragged into the field already signals defeat. His enemies see weakness, his allies doubt his strength, and his soldiers feel shame. Victory begins with spectacle, the shine of armor, the discipline of formation, the banners held high. These are not empty shows. They are weapons sharper than steel, for they strike the mind before the body. A man is already conquered when he believes he faces a superior force. So too in life. Look poor, and others will assume you are conquered already. They will treat you as vanquished. They will strip what little you have left without guilt, for weakness excuses all cruelty. Do not imagine that humility will save you. Do not believe that modesty will be rewarded. These are lies told by the powerful to keep the weak docile. The world admires wealth, despises poverty, and pretends this is virtue. The priest may praise humility in his sermons, but even he bows deeper to the rich man in his congregation. The ruler may speak of equality, but he dines only with those whose garments shine. The scholar may write of the nobility of poverty, but he dreams of the velvet chair in the palace. Men worship appearances because appearances govern their fears and desires. To look poor is to be treated as poor. To look powerful is to be treated as powerful, even if beneath the cloak you tremble with hunger. Remember this: reputation is armor. It is not enough to be strong, you must look strong. It is not enough to be clever, you must look clever. Men judge not by truth, but by what their eyes can seize in an instant. They cannot read your heart, but they can read your shoes. They cannot see your mind, but they can see your clothes. They cannot weigh your courage, but they can weigh your posture, and they decide your fate on this evidence alone. To neglect this law is suicide. To master it is survival. Every prince, every ruler, every merchant, every soldier knows it. Only the fool ignores it. Only the poor man despises it, and in despising it remains poor. If you wish to rise, you must cloak yourself. Cloak your weakness in symbols of strength. Cloak your poverty in signs of wealth. Cloak your doubt in gestures of certainty. The world is blind to essence. It worships masks. Give it a mask of power, and it will kneel before you. Give it the naked truth of your poverty, and it will spit on you. A man who looks poor is already conquered, already forgotten, already erased. And yet, in this truth lies your first weapon. For if appearance decides all, then appearance can be mastered. But mastery requires sacrifice, and sacrifice requires cunning. For to cloak yourself in strength while hollow demands calculation beyond the reach of the average man, would you dare attempt it? Would you dare carry the mask until the mask becomes your face? Then understand this: men do not forgive weakness once they have seen it. The moment you display the image of poverty, the stain clings to you like rot. Even if fortune later raises you, even if riches flow into your hands, there will always remain the memory of your earlier wretchedness. Men will whisper, "He was once nothing," and that whisper will erode respect like water breaking stone. The powerful are not judged only by what they are today, but by what they have always appeared to be. A prince born poor but hiding it skillfully may be admired as mysterious. A prince who shows his poverty openly will forever be haunted by it, no matter how high he climbs. The lesson is simple: never let them see you fall beneath the dignity of wealth. Better to starve in silence than to let them watch you eat scraps. In every street, in every gathering, you can see the law at work. Watch how a crowd parts for the man dressed in elegance, while it closes upon the ragged as though they were diseased. Observe how silence falls when the adorned one speaks, while the poor man's words vanish like smoke in the wind. This is not merely vanity, this is survival. For men associate the image of wealth with capability, with resources, with danger, and they associate the image of poverty with impotence, with lack, with safety to exploit. He who looks rich is approached with caution. He who looks poor is attacked without fear. To be underestimated is not a blessing, it is a slow death. For the underestimated man is stripped of allies, ignored in councils, dismissed in courts. Even his enemies waste no time destroying him, for he is not worth the effort. He is allowed to decay in obscurity. That is the most certain death of all. Consider how rulers use splendor, not for comfort, but for command. Thrones of gold, palaces of marble, armies draped in bright colors. These are not luxuries. They are instruments of terror and respect. The palace itself is a weapon, for its magnificence convinces subjects that their ruler is divine, untouchable, ordained. If a prince were to dress simply, to walk without guards, to eat like a commoner, the people might love him, but they would never fear him. And without fear, his throne would be fragile. Thus rulers invest fortunes in spectacle, for spectacle is the strongest fortress. Learn from this, Even in private life, the trappings of wealth shield you like armor. To discard them is to step naked into a battlefield. You may argue that honesty is noble, that to display your poverty is to live truthfully, but truth is a weak currency in the marketplace of power. The honest beggar dies forgotten, while the deceiver cloaked in riches becomes master of men. Do you think merchants truly weigh honesty when they lend coin? They weigh appearance. Do you think soldiers follow honesty into battle? They follow the shining standard, the promise of plunder, the sight of grandeur. Do you think a woman chooses honesty in love? She chooses the symbol of strength, the man who looks as though he can provide. Everywhere, in every matter of life, appearance commands while truth begs. To cling to honesty without mastery of appearances is not virtue. It is suicide disguised as morality. Understand also the cruelty of memory. When a man first meets you, he remembers the image you show him, not the words you speak. That image, once etched, governs every judgment thereafter. If the first impression is one of wealth, he will forgive later failings, for he will cling to that noble picture. If the first impression is one of poverty, no later success will fully erase it. You will always carry the scent of lack. Men trust what they saw first, and they rarely abandon it. Therefore, the first time you step into any room, you must appear more powerful than you are. Do not wait until you have wealth to look wealthy. Do not wait until you have power to look powerful. Pretend until you possess, and once you possess, never let them see you without it. Even the arts of religion and politics are soaked in this law. Priests drape themselves in robes, not because God demands silk, but because men respect silk more than holiness. Judges sit in elevated chairs, not because justice requires height, but because men bow more easily to those who look taller. Politicians speak from balconies, not because words fly farther from stone, but because men believe those above them must be important. The mask is everything. The ceremony is everything. The theater is everything. The people are blinded by vision and deaf to substance. And so the man who appears poor in such a theater is not seen as humble. He is seen as unworthy of the stage. His voice cannot reach beyond the curtain of his appearance. This is why you must fear not only poverty itself, but the look of poverty. To lack coin is dangerous, but to look as though you lack it is fatal. Many men climb from poverty to greatness by disguising themselves, by creating the illusion of fortune long before they possess it. They borrow garments, they polish their speech, they master gestures, they dine with those above them until the world forgets they ever came from below. And once the world forgets, they are safe. But those who parade their rags, those who let the world know they are poor, are condemned forever to kneel. For the world rarely allows a man to rise from the image he first shows. And if that image is poverty, then poverty will be his prison, no matter how far he climbs. The lesson is merciless, but truth always is. You must never look poor, even if you are, because the eye of man is swifter than his reason. And once it has judged you, you cannot escape its verdict. The man who looks rich, even when empty, is feared and respected. The man who looks poor, even when full of wisdom, is despised and ignored. This law binds rulers and beggars alike. You may break every other rule and survive, but break this one, and you are already destroyed. And the destruction does not come with thunder or flame. It comes quietly, in doors that never open, in allies that never appear, in voices that never listen. It comes in silence, in emptiness, in being forgotten. And there is no slower, colder death than that. And so you must understand the danger of letting yourself be seen in want. For men exploit not only your weakness, but their memory of it. Once you are known as poor, every gesture you make afterward is colored by suspicion. If you rise, they whisper that you rose by luck, by deceit, by some unnatural trick. They will not attribute your success to talent or effort, but to fortune's accident, and so they will deny you honor. Poverty stains the man even when wealth later clothes him. The crowd does not forget, and because it does not forget, it does not forgive. To escape poverty is difficult, but to escape the reputation of poverty is almost impossible. That is why prevention is better than cure. It is better to cloak your poverty at the start than to attempt to erase it once revealed. Observe how the cunning survive. They may not own much, but they invest in appearances as if appearances were gold itself. The coat is polished though borrowed. The shoes are clean though worn. The words are firm though the stomach is empty. By the time others discover the truth, it is too late. The image has already done its work. Respect was gained, doors were opened, trust was given. This is the art of survival. He who fails to practice it becomes the naked man among wolves. The wolves do not pity him, they tear him apart. The cunning man, even when hungry, feeds on the illusions he casts, and through those illusions he buys time to make them real. Illusion first, reality second. This is the only order that power obeys. Do not believe that honesty about your condition will inspire sympathy. Men may show pity, but pity is contempt disguised. They give alms to the beggar not to honor him, but to rid themselves of his shameful sight. They lower a coin as if throwing it to an animal, hoping it will disappear from their view. This is not respect. This is dismissal. He who relies on pity enslaves himself to those who despise him. To be pitied is worse than to be ignored. It makes you an object, not a man. Better to be feared, better to be envied, better even to be hated than to be pitied. For fear, envy, and hatred acknowledge power, while pity acknowledges only failure. To appear poor is to beg for pity, and to beg for pity is to carve your own chains. The stage of the world is cruel, and every man must play a role. You cannot choose to be unseen, for the eye of others is always upon you. Since you cannot escape their gaze, you must control it. Do not let them see you as you are. Let them see you as you must be. If you are poor, clothe yourself in symbols of strength. If you are weak, speak as though you command. If you are uncertain, move as though every step was planned. Men are too lazy to look beyond the surface. They believe what they see. Show them confidence, they believe in your power. Show them finery, they believe in your wealth. Show them despair, they believe in your defeat. The stage is not optional. To refuse to play is to lose before the game begins. Even the smallest details betray you or protect you. The way you stand, the way you shake a hand, the way your voice rises or falters, these are signals stronger than words. The poor man slouches, his voice is hesitant, his eyes dart. The world sees these signals and decides instantly, unworthy, unsafe, unfit. The same man, if he straightens his back, steadies his voice, hardens his eyes, may fool the crowd into believing he is a lord, and if they believe it long enough, the world will rearrange itself to fit the lie, for perception shapes reality more than reality shapes perception. Those who command appearances command destiny. Those who neglect appearances are enslaved by them. Consider the enemy who watches you. He does not strike when you are strong, he strikes when you look weak. If your garments are torn, if your carriage is unkempt, if your tone trembles, he sees his moment. He advances not because you are truly powerless, but because you appear powerless. Appearance invites aggression more than truth does. Nations are invaded not always because they are weak, but because they look weak. Merchants are cheated not because they lack coin, but because they look desperate. Husbands are betrayed not because they are unlovable, but because they look diminished. All betrayals are fed by the sight of vulnerability. To look poor is to walk with your back exposed, inviting the knife. This is why a man must learn to live as an actor, hiding his hunger behind a mask, hiding his desperation behind ceremony. It is not falsehood, it is survival. The world does not reward the naked truth, it rewards the clothed illusion. A farmer in his field may labor honestly, but he will be treated as dirt until he dresses as a master. A thinker may uncover wisdom, but he will be silenced until he speaks as though he owns a throne. A soldier may have courage, but he will be overlooked until his armor gleams. The mask must precede the man, and once the mask is worn long enough, it fuses with the face. Then the illusion is no longer illusion, it becomes reality. But the man who refuses the mask remains forever outside the theater, howling to an audience that will never listen. And here lies the cruelest paradox. Poverty itself is a challenge, but the appearance of poverty is a death sentence. One can recover from lack of coin, one cannot recover from the contempt it breeds. That is why you must fight not only against hunger, but against the sight of hunger, not only against weakness, but against the display of weakness. You must fight to cloak yourself at all times in strength, even if that strength is a shadow, for men obey shadows as if they were substance, and he who fails to master shadows will never command substance. To escape this fate, you must learn the alchemy of perception, the art of turning nothing into something by sheer force of image. A man with empty pockets who walks with certainty commands more respect than a man with gold who trembles. The crowd sees not into your chest but into your gestures. and from gestures it builds its truth. If you smile at the right moment, if your silence is timed with precision, if your clothing whispers wealth even when it is borrowed, men will swear you possess hidden power. They will invent strength for you, and in their invention, you will inherit it. Power begins as an echo. Make the world echo your superiority, and soon it will become real. But allow the world to echo your weakness, and that weakness will bury you long before the grave does. Understand that wealth is never merely possession of coin, it is possession of symbols. The crown itself is only metal, yet when placed on a head, it terrifies armies. The robe is only fabric, yet when draped on shoulders, it silences courts. The palace is only stone, yet when gilded, it commands the loyalty of nations. In the same way, the poor man who acquires even the smallest symbol can transform perception. A single ring, a polished pair of boots, a voice that does not waver. These are not trinkets, they are weapons. They force others to recalibrate their judgment, to hesitate before dismissing you, to wonder if they underestimated your power. Hesitation is all you need, for in hesitation lies the opportunity to strike. Once they hesitate, you are no longer prey, you have entered the realm of predator. The wise man knows he must never appear desperate. Desperation leaks from the eyes, from the mouth, from the fingers that twitch too eagerly. And men smell it, as wolves smell blood. The desperate man is offered loans at crushing terms, promises that will never be kept, favors that are chains in disguise. He is courted only to be consumed. But the man who conceals his desperation, who looks composed while flames burn behind his eyes, disarms the wolves. They retreat, uncertain whether their teeth will find flesh or steel. To mask your poverty is to mask your desperation. To mask your desperation is to force respect, and respect is the soil in which opportunity grows. Without it, you are trampled. With it, you may one day command. Look at the rise of cunning princes who began with nothing but learned to stage their fortune. They attended feasts dressed finer than their means allowed, borrowing garments, borrowing words, borrowing dignity until the world accepted the illusion. And once the illusion was accepted, real power followed, for men invest in those they already believe in. No merchant lends coin to a beggar who looks poor, but many lend to a beggar who looks like a prince. No army follows a general who looks broken, but they follow one who looks already victorious. Deception of appearance is not betrayal, it is strategy. It is the seed from which reality blossoms. But those who refuse to deceive, who cling to their nakedness, die with their integrity intact and their names forgotten. The cruelest truth is that the world despises weakness, yet forces men into weakness daily. The majority toil, the majority hunger, the majority live in scarcity, yet they hide it as though it were a crime, because indeed it is treated as one. And so life itself becomes a theater where every actor must perform wealth, strength, certainty. Some perform poorly and are jeered. Some perform well and are applauded. But the stage allows no absence. To step on it without costume is to be ridiculed until silence becomes your only refuge. If life is a stage, then to look poor is to appear unclothed before the mob. And the mob does not forgive nakedness, it devours it. To survive, you must costume yourself. To rule, you must dazzle them until they forget there was ever a costume at all. Do not mistake this as an invitation to vanity. Vanity is weakness disguised as pride. What I teach you is calculation. Every coin you spend on appearance is a weapon bought. Every hour you devote to posture and bearing is a fortress built. Vanity seeks applause. Strategy seeks survival. Vanity wastes wealth on ornaments. Strategy invests wealth in signals of power. The vain man wants to be admired. The cunning man wants to be obeyed. The vain man looks rich only to satisfy his reflection. The cunning man looks rich to bend the will of others. One is self-indulgence, the other is war, and life is war. Every street, every marketplace, every council hall is a battlefield of perception. On this battlefield, the man who looks poor has already lost before the first blow is struck. You must therefore discipline yourself never to be careless with appearances. A wrinkle in your clothing can be a crack in your armor. A tremor in your voice can be the opening your enemies need. A gesture of hesitation can invite the strike that kills you. Men do not forgive these things. They do not say, "He was only tired, he was only distracted, he was only poor." They say, "He is weak," and weakness, once named, cannot be untied from you. It becomes your brand, burned into your skin by the gaze of others. They see it once, and they see it forever. Guard yourself as you would guard your throne, for every glance at you is a judgment, and every judgment is either a step toward power or a step toward ruin. The decision rests not in their eyes, but in the image you present to them. And yet many will tell you that substance matters more than surface, that true character will shine through despite humble clothes, that honesty and effort are enough to secure a man's place. This is the language of fools, taught to children so they remain obedient, whispered to the poor so they stay content, preached from pulpits so the weak do not revolt. But observe the world with cold eyes, and you will see that the rich are honored even when they are corrupt, that the powerful are celebrated even when they are cruel, and that the poor are scorned even when they are virtuous. Men judge with their eyes long before their minds, and once their eyes condemn you, no act of nobility will redeem you. It is not justice that rules human affairs, it is perception, and perception is blind to the truth, but sharp to the mask. This is why rulers cloak themselves in ritual. A coronation is not about governance, but about spectacle. Incense rises, bells ring, robes shimmer, not because these things create wisdom in the prince, but because they create obedience in the people. They see grandeur, they bow, they see finery, they submit. The man beneath the robe may be a coward, but the robe itself transforms him into something feared. If a king were to walk into his court dressed as a beggar, even if his power remained, his grip would falter. The same men who once trembled before him would now laugh in his face. The crown would still sit on his head, but it would have lost its power. Power is not in the object, but in the image of the object. Lose the image, and you lose the obedience it commands. Even in private dealings this law holds. A merchant who arrives at the table looking poor will be offered crumbs, even if his chest is full of gold. The buyer assumes weakness, and weakness invites insult. Another merchant, though his purse is lighter, enters adorned and poised, and suddenly he is courted. His words are valued, his requests are met. Contracts are signed, not because his arguments are better, but because his image was stronger. In negotiation, truth sits in silence, while appearance speaks loudly. You must never forget this. To look poor in business is to bleed profit before the first word is spoken. The man who masters appearances has already won half the battle before ink touches the page. Think also of how armies march. A commander knows the strength of his men lies not only in their swords, but in their show. Flags are raised high, drums thunder, armor gleams in the sun. Even a tired, underfed army can terrify the enemy if it looks unbreakable. And even a strong, well-trained force can collapse if it looks ragged and hopeless. The battle is decided first in the mind, and the mind judges by appearances. Soldiers fight harder when they believe they are led by strength. Citizens obey longer when they believe their ruler possesses endless resources. Enemies hesitate when they believe their opponent is untouchable. If you look poor, every enemy will advance upon you without fear. If you look rich, they will hesitate, and in hesitation lies your survival. There is also the matter of allies. A man who looks poor will find his circle filled with vultures who offer aid only to extract more from him. They will lend him small sums, not out of kindness, but to bind him in chains of debt. They will flatter him, not because they respect him, but because they see him as pliable. And when the time comes to choose between him and a rival who looks wealthy, they will abandon him instantly, for loyalty in this world is a transaction, and men prefer to invest where they believe profit lies. If you look poor, you are already bankrupt in their eyes, no matter the truth of your worth. But if you look rich, even when your coffers are empty, they will fight to remain near you, hoping to feed on your promise. Allies are not won with honesty, they are purchased with appearance. The same cruelty governs love. A man who looks poor may be praised for his heart, but he will rarely be chosen. Women seek security, and security is first seen in symbols of strength. The suitor who enters dressed in refinement, speaking with composure, appearing as though he holds the world in his palm, will win devotion even if he owns nothing. The suitor who comes in rags may offer genuine affection, but affection cannot compete with fear of hunger. Appearances decide where loyalty lies. To look poor in love is to beg for rejection, to beg for betrayal, to beg for humiliation. Those who refuse to master this law condemn themselves to loneliness or exploitation. Those who embrace it bend even the most skeptical hearts to their command. You may believe that rejecting appearances makes you free, that refusing the mask liberates you from the chains of society's judgment. But this is a dangerous illusion. The world will not honor your defiance, it will punish it. Men who refuse to play the game are not respected, they are erased. Their voices do not carry, their influence does not spread, their ambitions rot before they bear fruit. Freedom without power is a cage, and power without appearances is an impossibility. You cannot escape the stage, you can only choose whether you appear upon it as master or as fool. The man who looks poor plays the fool. The man who cloaks himself in wealth, even when false, plays the master. And men obey the master while they laugh at the fool. Never forget, the eye is the tyrant of judgment. The crowd does not care for what is hidden in your chest. They care only for what they can see in an instant. Look poor, and you have already lost before the conversation begins. Look rich, and even your silence commands respect. Appearances are not ornaments, they are weapons, shields, fortresses. And without them, you stand naked, trembling, and ready for slaughter. Consider what happens when a man allows himself to be seen in rags. He may have noble intentions, a brilliant mind, or even a secret fortune, but the instant the eye registers poverty, judgment is passed and cannot be withdrawn. Every word he speaks afterward is weighed against that first image and found lighter. Every claim he makes is doubted, every promise distrusted, every ambition mocked. His poverty becomes the lens through which all else is seen. This is why first impressions are weapons sharper than swords. They strike before the mind can resist. Once cut, the wound lingers forever. And in politics, in business, in love, a wounded reputation never fully heals. To look poor is to inflict that wound upon yourself before your enemies even draw their blades. A ruler understands this instinctively. He parades in robes, crowns, jewels, surrounded by banners and guards, not for comfort, but for power. The show is the substance. Without the robes, he is just a man, vulnerable to ridicule, vulnerable to disobedience. The crowd bows not to his flesh, but to the symbols that clothe it. If he were stripped of them, if he appeared as a beggar, no amount of laws or decrees could protect him from mockery and revolt. The throne itself would shatter, because the throne lives only in the minds of those who believe in its grandeur. This lesson extends beyond kings. Every man who wishes to rule, even if only over his household or his trade, must clothe himself in symbols that declare authority. To appear poor is to invite rebellion against you, even from those who once served you loyally. And yet, some men comfort themselves with the lie that sincerity will carry them. They say, if I work hard, if I speak truly, if I am honest about my poverty, men will respect me. But sincerity without spectacle is invisible. It is the whisper of a dying man against the roar of a trumpet. No one hears it. And if they do hear it, they despise it. For men do not admire honesty when it reveals weakness. They admire cunning, they admire strength, they admire the performance of wealth. You may toil endlessly, you may speak with the voice of reason, but if you look poor, your labor will be stolen and your words ignored. The world does not reward effort, it rewards appearances. And the man who refuses to understand this condemns himself to be a servant until death. Think of how betrayal is born. Rarely do men betray those who look powerful. They hesitate, fearing the retribution that might follow. But when a man looks poor, betrayal comes swiftly, for there is no fear of consequence. The servant steals from the poor master because he knows his master lacks strength to punish him. The ally abandons the poor comrade because he knows no power will come in retaliation. The wife despises the poor husband because she knows no protection can shield her. Weakness invites treachery, and treachery multiplies when weakness is displayed. To look poor is to hang a sign on your back that reads, "Betray me without fear." The man who avoids this fate is not always strong, but he is always cautious enough to conceal his weakness. Even in war, this truth devours the careless. A general whose men look tired and ragged is already half defeated. His enemies see their chance. His allies lose faith, his soldiers lose spirit. Appearances crush morale before the battle is joined. But a general who invests in spectacle, who ensures his men look fierce, who raises banners and polishes armor, even when food is scarce, commands victory through illusion. The enemy falters, the allies rally, the soldiers fight as though possessed. Victory is written in the eyes before it is written on the ground, and so it is with life itself. If you look poor, you are defeated before the battle begins. If you look rich, you may win even when your strength is small. Men fight harder for those who appear unconquerable. Men abandon quickly those who appear already conquered. There are men who rise not by birth, nor by fortune, but by the mastery of disguise. They craft images so strong that reality bends to meet them. They rent carriages they cannot afford. They wear garments borrowed. They speak with authority they have not yet earned. And the world, gullible as ever, bows to the illusion. Opportunities arise, alliances form, doors open. What was once false becomes true, for men believe so firmly in appearances that they make them real. This is the alchemy of power. To look wealthy is to be treated as wealthy, and to be treated as wealthy is to gain wealth. To look poor is to be treated as poor, and to be treated as poor is to sink deeper into poverty. Illusion feeds reality, reality feeds illusion, and the cycle spins forever. The wise man rides it upward, the fool is crushed beneath it. You may still cling to the hope that exceptions exist, that a man of genius or virtue might be spared this law. But genius without appearance is dismissed as madness, and virtue without appearance is dismissed as weakness. The saint in rags is spat upon, while the charlatan in robes is worshipped. The philosopher in poverty writes in silence, while the impostor in splendor commands disciples. Men are not moved by truth, they are moved by what they can see and touch. And because they are moved by it, they serve it, they obey it, they sacrifice for it. To look poor is to erase your own genius, your own virtue, your own worth. To look rich is to amplify them, even if they do not exist. This is the cruelty of mankind, that what is seen always outweighs what is true, and to ignore this cruelty is to sign your own death warrant. There is another danger in looking poor. It marks you as replaceable. Men do not value what they believe is abundant, and poverty is the most abundant sight in the world. Every street has beggars, every market has the desperate, every village has the broken. When you appear among them, you dissolve into the faceless mass. No one distinguishes you, no one remembers you, no one fights to preserve you. You become one more nameless shadow, easily discarded. But when you appear adorned in symbols of wealth and strength, you set yourself apart from the herd. You force men to take notice, to whisper your name, to consider your presence. Distinction is power, and appearances are the first, most immediate tool of distinction. Without them, you are swallowed by obscurity. With them, you carve yourself into memory. Even allies will not fight for a man who looks poor. They may share his bread, they may smile at his humility, but when battle calls, they will stand behind another who looks as though he commands destiny. Men want to be associated with triumph, not with shame. They tie their fortunes to the image of power, not the image of lack. This is why those who appear rich attract loyalty even when they are unworthy, while those who appear poor, in every circle, in every council, the choice is made. Follow the man who looks like a winner. Leave behind the man who looks like a burden. To look poor is to brand yourself as dead weight, and no man willingly chains himself to what drags him down. The same law governs enemies. They strike quickly at the man who looks poor, for they sense no risk in doing so. He appears defenseless, so they attack with boldness. They appear merciful in sparing him, but the mercy is only mockery, for they never feared him to begin with. But against the man who looks rich, who radiates the image of strength, enemies hesitate. They calculate, they delay, they wonder what hidden weapons or allies he might hold. That hesitation is the difference between life and death. One is assaulted without pause, the other commands fear even without action. The man who looks poor invites predators to feast on him, while the man who looks rich poisons the air with doubt, and doubt restrains the boldest hands. Fear protects more than steel, and fear is born from appearances. Even the marketplace reflects this cruel symmetry. The customer who looks poor is cheated, given the lowest quality, treated with disdain. The customer who looks rich is courted, offered the best, treated with reverence. The irony is that the poor man often has the same coin as the rich-looking one, but the treatment is not determined by the weight of the purse, it is determined by the weight of the appearance. Men do not calculate, they react, they assume, and in their assumption lies your fate. If they assume weakness, you are dismissed. If they assume power, you are elevated. Appearances are the shortcut of judgment, and men are too impatient for anything else. That is why the man who looks poor is doomed to lose, even when he possesses everything needed to win. Do not think that humility will win you secret admiration. Humility is praised only when it is worn by the powerful. When a king humbles himself, men marvel because they know he has the option of grandeur. When a poor man humbles himself, men sneer because they see only inevitability. The king's humility is choice. The poor man's humility is compulsion. Choice is respected, compulsion is despised. To look poor is to show that your humility is forced upon you, and nothing forced commands admiration. If you wish to be admired, you must first cloak yourself in power. Only then can your humility appear as virtue. Without that cloak, it appears as weakness, and weakness is spat upon. And so the path is clear. You must invest more in appearances than in comfort, more in symbols than in luxuries, more in what men can see than in what you yourself can enjoy. A rich meal eaten in solitude grants only momentary pleasure. A fine coat worn in public grants lasting power. A private treasure buried in the earth keeps you alive in silence, but a borrowed jewel displayed in the open can build you an empire. Appearances magnify every possession, every act, every word. Without them, even wealth shrinks to nothing. With them, even poverty swells into influence. The wise man chooses the latter, for he understands that men obey not what is, but what seems to be. To look poor is to lose the world. To look rich is to bend it. And this is the tragedy of those who ignore the law. They may labor tirelessly, they may speak with brilliance, they may burn with ambition, but without the mask of wealth, they remain unseen, unheard, unloved. The world does not search for hidden gems, it worships what sparkles on the surface. Those who refuse to shine, even falsely, are buried alive beneath the dirt of mediocrity. They die shouting truths that no one will hear, while fools in glittering masks are crowned with glory. This is the final cruelty of appearances, and it is the cruelty you must master, for it will not spare you. The world does not forgive those who look poor, it erases them. A man who looks poor does not simply face neglect. He is condemned to a cycle that feeds upon itself. Once the world has judged him, it withdraws opportunity. And without opportunity he cannot rise, and without rising he cannot alter his appearance. He becomes locked in the prison of perception. This is why poverty is not merely an economic condition, but a sentence handed down by society's gaze. It is not hunger alone that destroys him, but the way others treat him because of it. Merchants deny him fair terms, rulers deny him access, companions deny him respect. Each denial deepens the hole until even his spirit bends beneath the weight. To look poor is to live under perpetual trial, condemned without defense, punished without crime. But there are those who learn to break the cycle by staging wealth before they possess it. They understand that the mask precedes the man. They rent fine chambers they cannot afford, not to sleep more comfortably, but to be seen differently. They eat meager meals in private so that they may feast in public with borrowed splendor. They polish every gesture, every word, every garment, until the illusion becomes so perfect that even the powerful are deceived. And once deceived, the powerful grant them real wealth, real alliances, real authority. In this way, the illusion creates reality. They look rich first, they become rich after. This is the secret few grasp. You cannot wait until fortune arrives to dress like it. You must dress as though fortune has already chosen you, and only then will she be seduced into truly doing so. This is why fear is stronger than love. A man who looks poor may be loved for his simplicity, but he is not feared. And without fear, he is not obeyed. Love is fickle, fear is reliable. Men may abandon love in a heartbeat, but they cling to fear as though it were iron. To look poor is to remove fear from the hearts of others, and in doing so you remove your only secure hold upon them. They will disobey, betray, desert, for nothing in your appearance warns them of punishment. But to look rich, to look powerful, to look like one whose wrath is costly, this instills fear even before you act. Fear secures loyalty where affection fails, and appearance is the root of that fear. Cloak yourself in power, and men tremble even at your silence. Appear poor, and they mock you even when you shout. Even religion itself, which claims to despise worldly show, thrives upon appearances. Cathedrals rise higher than palaces, not to honor God alone, but to terrify men into awe. Golden chalices, jeweled robes, choirs resounding through vast halls. These are not tools of prayer, but tools of submission. If priests wore rags and worshipped in huts, few would bow before them. But clothed in splendor, they are treated as gods themselves. This is proof eternal, that appearances command obedience more than substance ever will. The same rule applies to you. If the priest needs robes to inspire devotion, how much more must the common man need symbols to inspire respect? To reject appearances is to reject influence. and no man who rejects influence can claim to live free. Think also of inheritance. A father may leave his son wealth, but if the son squanders his appearance, the fortune will wither. Spendthrift heirs are not ruined first by their empty treasuries, but by the visible decay of their dignity. Once they look poor, creditors swarm, allies vanish, enemies sharpen their teeth. The decline of appearances invites the decline of reality. This is why wise heirs maintain splendor at all costs, even if it drains their coffers, because they know once appearances are lost, the coffers will soon follow anyway. Better to starve privately while looking magnificent in public than to eat well while looking broken. One preserves opportunity, the other destroys it. The illusion of wealth is itself a form of wealth, more precious than gold, for it purchases trust, respect, and survival. You must also see how contempt operates. Men do not despise poverty because they hate the poor individually. They despise it because it frightens them. Poverty is a mirror in which they glimpse their own possible ruin. They turn away in disgust, not at the man, but at the fate he represents. This is why they lash out at him, mock him, dismiss him. It is not cruelty alone, it is fear disguised as contempt. To look poor is to remind the world of death, decay, impotence. No one wants to be near such reminders. But to look rich is to remind them of triumph, security, power, everything they crave, and so they draw near, they offer, they follow. One image repels, the other attracts. Master this, and you can move men like cattle. Fail, and you are trampled beneath their stampede. Never underestimate how swiftly men draw conclusions. In the blink of an eye, before you speak a word, they have measured your worth. This judgment is not carefully reasoned, it is instantaneous. And once made, it is nearly impossible to reverse. The man who looks rich enters a hall and is assumed to be competent, capable, worthy. The man who looks poor enters the same hall and is assumed to be foolish, desperate, unworthy. From that moment, every word, every act, every gesture will be interpreted through that lens. The rich-looking man's failures are excused, the poor-looking man's successes are ignored. Such is the tyranny of perception. You cannot escape it, only manipulate it. And to manipulate it, you must never, under any circumstance, allow yourself to look poor. Even silence itself is interpreted through the mask you wear. When a man who looks rich is silent, his silence is mistaken for wisdom, for calculation, for hidden strength. Men lean forward, waiting to hear what profound thought he may finally release. But when a man who looks poor is silent, his silence is mistaken for ignorance, for weakness, for shame. Men turn away, convinced he has nothing worth saying. The same act is judged differently, not because of truth, but because of appearance. This is the curse of poverty's image. It distorts every gesture, every word, every breath. The world sees you not as you are, but as it has already decided you must be. And once that judgment is made, you live in its prison until you break it, or until it buries you. This is why cruelty must sometimes be cloaked in splendor. A ruler who punishes in rags is hated as a brute. A ruler who punishes in robes is feared as a god. Men forgive harshness when it is dressed in majesty, but they resent even kindness when it comes from those who look lowly. Consider the beggar who offers advice. It is dismissed with mockery. Consider the prince who says the same words. It is recorded, applauded, carved into stone. The truth of the counsel does not change. The only thing that changes is who wears the mask of power. To look poor is to throw pearls into the mud. To look rich is to have even your dust mistaken for gold. And if you wish your words to echo, you must first make your image thunder. Do not think that time will correct these injustices. Time does not cleanse appearances, it fossilizes them. The first impression hardens into permanent stone. Men will remember forever how they first saw you, and they will chain you to that vision. If you looked poor, you will always be poor in their eyes, even if riches later fill your hands. They will say you became rich by accident, by fraud, by undeserved chance. They will never allow you dignity, for they never gave it to you at the start. But if you looked rich at the beginning, even when you were penniless, they will forever believe you were destined for greatness. When you stumble, they will call it a trial. When you fail, they will call it a lesson. They will grant you excuses because their eyes already declared you a master. Appearance writes destiny more enduringly than any truth of character. This is why betrayal clings so easily to those who look poor. Their allies, their lovers, their companions betray them without hesitation, for they feel no shame in deserting what they never respected. Loyalty is not born of virtue, it is born of fear and pride. Men are loyal to what they believe is strong, for it flatters their own sense of survival. Men are loyal to what looks secure, for it shelters them from risk. But who would be loyal to the poor? Loyalty to the poor is seen as foolishness, as wasted effort, as suicide. This is why those who look poor are abandoned again and again, while those who look rich are pursued even by those they have wronged. To cloak yourself in wealth is to cloak yourself in loyalty. To appear poor is to strip yourself naked before the storm. Even ambition bends to this law. A man who looks poor but declares lofty goals is ridiculed. They laugh at his plans, not because they are impossible, but because they do not fit the mask he wears. The same ambition, voiced by a man who looks rich, is taken as prophecy. They believe he will succeed simply because he appears capable of success, and because they believe, they assist him, they open doors, they pave the path. In this way, appearance is not merely a shield, it is the very engine of destiny. It makes others conspire to bring about what they already assume will happen. And thus the poor man, who may have the same fire, the same talent, the same resolve, is denied not by fate, but by perception. He is defeated before he begins, not by reality, but by image. So understand, every gesture, every garment, every possession you reveal is a declaration of who you are. To look poor is to declare yourself prey. To look rich is to declare yourself predator. To look poor is to declare yourself disposable. To look rich is to declare yourself indispensable. Men obey these declarations without thought, for they are wired to judge swiftly, to judge harshly, to judge by what they see. You cannot change this nature, you can only exploit it. And to exploit it, you must cloak yourself always in symbols of wealth, in signs of strength, in gestures of certainty. For he who neglects these things is already defeated, and he who masters them has already conquered, long before the battle is fought. And here is the final truth. To never look poor, even if you are, is not vanity but survival. Every empire is built first on illusion. Every throne rests first on spectacle. Every victory is won first in the eyes of men before it is sealed in their hands. You may tell yourself that appearances do not matter, that substance alone carries weight. But this is a comforting lie for the weak. Look around you, the wealthy fool is honored, the adorned coward is obeyed, the glittering fraud is followed. Why? Because men do not care for essence, they care for image. They do not wait to know you, they decide the instant they see you. That judgment becomes your prison or your crown. To look poor is to build a prison around yourself. To look rich is to place the crown upon your own head. This law spares no one. It governs the beggar in the street and the prince in his palace. It governs the merchant at his table and the soldier on his field. It governs the lover seeking devotion and the ruler seeking obedience. Everywhere, in all things, men bow before appearances, and those who control appearances control men. If you refuse this law, you will suffer under it. If you master it, you will rule with it. This is why the wise man spends not on comfort but on symbols, not on indulgence but on signals, not on private pleasure but on public power. The robe you wear, the words you speak, the posture you maintain, these are not trivialities. They are fortresses, weapons, crowns, and without them, you are naked and forgotten. Think of what happens to those who neglect this law. They labor tirelessly, but their labor enriches others. They speak wisely, but their wisdom is dismissed. They sacrifice endlessly, but their sacrifice is mocked. They are condemned not for lack of effort, but for lack of splendor. Their poverty becomes a spectacle others use as a warning. This is what failure looks like. And the crowd laughs, not because it is cruel, but because it is afraid. To look poor is to become the object men fear becoming, and so they despise you for reminding them. They push you down, not because you deserve it, but because you reflect their nightmares. That is why poverty is punished beyond reason, and why appearances are rewarded beyond justice. But those who master appearances bend the world to their will. They turn weakness into strength by cloaking it, hunger into power by disguising it, doubt into command by masking it. They understand that men are sheep, led by sight, that truth is too slow to matter, that only image strikes with speed. They build their thrones upon illusions so convincing that illusions become reality. They may begin with nothing, but because they look like everything, they attract everything. Allies rush to them, enemies hesitate before them, lovers cling to them, crowds worship them, And by the time reality catches up, they no longer need illusion, for they have made it real. This is the secret of survival: to look powerful until you are, to look wealthy until you are, to look victorious until you are. So remember this: you cannot escape appearances. You can only choose whether they destroy you or serve you. If you look poor, you will be trampled, forgotten, erased. If you look rich, even when your purse is empty, you will command, you will endure, you will rise. The world bows to masks, not to faces. Give it the mask of power, and it will obey. Show it the naked truth of your poverty, and it will spit on you. There is no justice in this. There is only necessity, and necessity demands that you never, under any condition, look poor. For the man who looks poor has already lost, and the man who masters the illusion of wealth, even if only borrowed, has already won. If you've made it this far, it's because a part of you already knows this truth. To look poor is to be condemned before you even speak. Men do not wait for your essence, they bow only to your mask. Now tell me in the comments, are you ready to cloak your weakness, to master illusion until it bends into reality? Are you willing to sacrifice comfort to command respect, to starve privately while feeding on power publicly? If this message touched you, if it made sense, write in the comments, I will never look poor. Let's see how many here are truly ready to wield appearance as armor. And don't forget, keep watching the next video. It's important, much more than you imagine. See you there.